Welcome back to another episode of Decline Invite, the only invite worth accepting. I'm your host, the extroverted IT leader, Ryan Drumheller, and today's episode is one I think a lot of leaders genuinely need to hear right now because we're talking about something that quietly impacts organizations everywhere. That's burnout, that's pressure, self-doubt, leadership exhaustion, and what authentic leadership actually looks like. So joining me today is Kurt Busch. Kurt is a certified internal family systems practitioner, trauma-informed coach, co-founder of Brimstone Coaching Group, published author, and the co-host of Live Fully, Lead Authentically podcast. So over the years, Kurt has worked across manufacturing leadership, nonprofit leadership, even pastor ministry, and executive coaching. Today, he helps leaders move beyond performance, exhaustion, and self-doubt into greater clarity, wholeness, and authentic leadership. One thing that's really stood out to me about Kurt's work is that he talks openly about something most leadership conversations avoid completely: the inner world of leadership. Not just performance, not productivity, but the emotional pressure, anxiety, the self criticism, and identity struggles leaders quietly carry while trying to hold everything together. So today we're going to talk about some of those topics: the burnout, the authenticity, the inner critic, the self-awareness, reflection, and what sustainable leadership actually looks like in the real world. So Kurt, welcome to Decline Invite. It's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ryan. Super happy to be here.
And one of the first things that we like to do is just go right into it. So the first few questions are a little bit of icebreaker. So you've had a pretty unique background across, the manufacturing leadership and a nonprofit, the ministry, coaching. Was leadership always something you naturally gravitated towards?
No. No. I actually, I can look back now and realize I did not want to be a leader because I was looking at bad leaders, right? If leadership meant I had to be the expert in the room with all the answers and no doubt, I didn't want any part of it. So I would say no, with an asterisk.
Well, it takes me to my very next question then is what originally pulled you into coaching and leadership development work?
Yeah, this is a long answer. We're gonna need like 3 hours. So I don't know if you remember 2020, Ryan, but some things were happening in 2020. A lot of things actually happened in 2020. I was leading a new church plant of sorts. We launched it January 1st of 2020, which is amazing. Looking back, great timing. Love that timing. And really, the short answer is we went from like, how do we launch this thing to like the emergency of how do I help my leaders lead from their best place? How do I help volunteer leaders navigate their own anxiety? During a pandemic, during all the other kind of cultural upheaval things, during some organizational upheaval, and also just trying to launch this new thing. And I realized in that season that that's the work that I really loved to do, way more than organizational leadership. I loved helping those leaders navigate their own stuff.
It's a fantastic answer, right? And then maybe you fell into it, but you're doing something you like and you love. And yeah, I remember 2020 pretty vividly.
Uh-huh.
Remember being deployed for work. I think I was in New Hampshire at that time, and questioning if I could get on an airplane or if I was just gonna have to drive the rental car all the way back to Michigan at that point. But yeah,
Man,
crazy times.
crazy times. Yep.
So looking back now, what leadership lessons from like the manufacturing nonprofit environment stick with you the most?
Yeah, I mean, I loved my time in all of those seasons, and all of them have taught me different things. The one thing I had the chance to work with a process improvement engineer in my manufacturing time. He was what they call a black belt in process improvement. There are different degrees of, I mean, it's basically a certification, but they do this in like the sort of martial arts way, different belt colors. And what he taught me a lot about systems, and he taught me that the systems that we run, or the systems that we manage, will always get the results they're designed to get. That if we're getting a bad result, that's not an accident. We're getting a bad result because the systems, in his case, like the manufacturing process, but I think more broadly, the systems are designed to get them. Like there's no accidental result. The results tell us there's something wrong with our system, and that hangs on with me today. Um, from my pastoral ministry, I had a mentor who would say how we do things is just as, if not more important than what we do. And I remind myself of that once a week. That hangs with me, and I think it's invaluable.
As somebody who takes like the reputation seriously and understands that once you don't have it, it's really hard to get back if ever. I can land with that message. I can echo that. So that's amazing. That's amazing guidance, and 100% would say listen to that. So what's something people misunderstand about leadership coaching or personal growth?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's a lot, right? I think there are a million coaches out there today, and for the most part, doing really good work, doing similar work differently. Yeah, I have a lot of colleagues and peers that I think are just doing great work. I literally just got off a podcast with another peer that I think like we're partnering together a little differently, and there's ways that we can help each other. Uh, I don't think that's every coach. I think leadership coaching today gets kind of a bad rap. I think what people fail to understand about coaching, or at least what I would say productive and fruitful coaching, is that we often just want someone to tell us what to do. Most leaders, not most, there's some leaders want a coach to say, "Hey, just tell me what I need. Like, tell me what to do. Give me a roadmap, and I'll just do it." Right? But I think what's missed there is the inner work, the work to say, how are you as a leader showing up? How are you as a leader conducting yourself? How are you as a leader accessing your best thinking instead of your emotions? Um, and I think that's often where the resistance is to some sort of leadership coaching. To say, no, I don't need to work on that. I don't need to work on my self awareness. I just need to know what to do. And what we would say is that the lack of self awareness will always undermine the what to do. It'll always undermine the tactical, practical things that we're doing. So we just always kind of try to steer people back. Like, yep, we can get to the tactical, practical, but first we have to start with the sort of inner self work. And there's just often a lot of resistance. I resisted it. I mean, most people that are doing that sort of work in themselves resisted it at some point too. Doesn't make anybody a bad leader or a bad person, but there's often a confusion over leadership coaching and leadership development, meaning like I have to start here first.
I would say as somebody who's kind of like gone through that, and as somebody who employs an executive coach right now, for things that I want to work on, and then every session get challenged. But we had that conversation about, I'm ready, open it up, hit me. Um, you have to be ready. I mean, it's a good point. You have to be ready to, pull back the layers and say you're going to actively work on this. And it's not a game plan. I get asked every session, what do I want to work on this week? And
Yep.
it's so like so challenging. And I have a rule that I go into it and I go, I don't think, and whatever I think of at that moment is what I feel. So I'm like feeding the emotions of like I need to get rid of this to rewire my brain. And I'm willing to bet that is not what shows up typically at the door, because that's not who I was early on for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of my earliest, before I began doing this, my coaching part, I own a coaching practice with a good friend of mine. And, we believe that we have to be doing our own work too. And, the beginning of my own work a decade ago was a coach that I had. He was a friend of mine. I just kind of called him up after a particularly hard meeting, and I was like, these people just don't get it. And I just was venting about this group of people, right? And he listened well, and then he said on the phone, I'll never forget it. He said, "Okay, now what's your contribution?" And I'm like, "Didn't you hear me? I just told you how this team sucks. Like, I didn't have any contribution." And he calmly like, "Okay, well, what are you doing to create and sustain the status quo?" And I'm like, "Shut up." But again, yeah, I think it's not natural for us to think like, how am I playing a part? But it's such an important question, right? Like, what is my role in keeping what is what is?
Yeah, I think it depends on what the person is doing at that time, why they're at the door. Like, for me, I, I went through a job, the IT tech market. Shocker, everyone probably has heard that. And I kept sitting there like at night going, but I did everything that anybody could ever want. Why am I like going through and
Mm,
facing? And I had to go through a lot of me deciding I didn't want to be in that space. I needed to rewire my brain. I needed to get back to what I know I'm good at is being creative, but I wasn't anywhere near that. I
yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
able to be.
yeah,
So I was like, okay, well, I've had a few people reach out to me. I've had some great convos, highly recommended from some people that we were kind of like doing some things with. And I was like, it's time to sit down and, go through the struggle. And now I'm too creative. Like a Jekyll Hyde situation. I feel bad for her, but it's you know, uh, it's it's a much better place. So it's somebody who can echo, yeah, take the time, and we'll get to that. We got a lot more questions and stories to go
yep,
through.
yep.
So you said leaders are exhausted, overwhelmed, quietly faking it while trying to hold everything together. Why do you think that that's become so common?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always gracious. Like I want to talk about this in a gracious way because I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning and says, "Man, I'm going to go to work today and I'm just going to survive." So I want to have a gracious posture here. I think it's two things. I don't think people know any different, right? I think this is just what we've kind of been taught. We've kind of been trained to say that if I'm going to lead something, if I'm going to be responsible for something, a project, a team, whatever it is, that it's just going to be really hard and I'm going to have to deal with it. And I want to clarify, like hard doesn't mean that I have to just survive. Like I think we can thrive in hard. But I think we just kind of we don't know any other way. I'm like, well, this is just the cost of leadership. I'm gonna just survive, and I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna metaphorically kick the dog because I'm just struggling. So I think we don't know any better, and I think that I want to say that graciously. I didn't know any better. I think the other thing is we culturally reward this. Like I think culturally speaking and socially speaking, we reward people that blow past their boundaries. We reward people who overwork. We reward people who say yes to everything. And I think that kind of perpetuates. And then when you put those things together, I think we have a perfect storm. When I don't know any better, and then I'm kind of culturally and socially rewarded for burning myself out, well, I'm going to keep going because I need the reward. I need even if it's just sort of a social group affirmation, like I need that and I can't go without it. So again, I think those things kind of make a perfect storm.
Was going through interview cycles, one of my favorite questions would be like a negativity question, and how would you deal with that? And my response to that question almost always was, well, I don't believe that people come to work and choose to be bad or
Yeah.
choose to do anything. At the end of the day, we all are humans, right? We have good days and bad days, and I don't know necessarily what Bob, Bill, Sally, and Jan are going through that day, but I hope that throughout the course of time, we can have more good days than bad days, and we can see what their commonality is, and then I can help, get them to a different place if they're ready to get there too. There's like a lot
Yeah.
of factors and variables
Yeah.
involved with that, and
Yeah.
then at the same time, like just I would constantly be, in IT, we have a lot of releases and things that would break, and you have to work overnights or weekends sometimes. And if somebody did that for me, I would always have like I always love to say, like, if it was on over a weekend, I'd be like, well, I'll see you Tuesday, and they'd be so confused. They're like, but Monday, and I'm like, yeah, I'll see you Tuesday. And they're always so confused and staring at me. I'm like, no, you just did the company a solid. You did amazing. You're probably at 120% right now.
Yeah.
You're no good to yourself. You're no good to me. You're no
Yeah.
good to the business.
Yeah.
And getting the business to understand that recharging coming back Tuesday, I was going to get a better Tuesday to Friday than if I made that person come in Monday to Friday. Such a crazy concept. So you're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a crazy, I mean, I think that cultural piece is like if I take my foot off the gas for a second, or if I allow someone to miss a day or whatever it is, like we're going to just get behind or we're going to get buried or we're not going to be as fruitful or productive. I don't know. I mean, I think there's some cases and some stats to pull to say I think we're better when we're refreshed. We're better when we're thriving than when we're just kind of treading water. There's an analogy that I really love. Ryan, have you ever tried to hold a beach ball underwater?
Oh, yes. I mean, I was a kid once.
Yep. It's hard, right? Because that beach ball's full of air. It wants to pop up, and the further down under the water you hold it, the harder it just like it wants to pop up out of your hand. And you know you can try it, and it'll work for a minute, but at some point that beach ball is going to find its way out of the water. And the further down that beach ball comes from, the more water it's going to splash on people. I think the same is true in our leadership and our sort of our boundaries and the way we think about time and rest and energy. Like we can hold that beach ball underwater. We can survive, but at some point that beach ball is going to rush out of the water. The question is, are we willing to help it come out of the water slowly so it doesn't splash everybody, or are we just going to keep holding it there until it, you know, until someone lashes out at someone, or someone, you know, has this explosive meeting where they lose their cool. You know, that's always the question of like, do we help it up? Do we try to go from survival to thriving, or are we just going to wait until we crack, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of times that I haven't necessarily been in the best environments and situations, so, keep those things in mind. I truly believe that there are other better versions of this out there, but there'd be a lot of times where I would have to put up that fight as the leader against HR or somebody else and be like, I can tell you, I am intertwined with this team. And if they were abusing something or,
Yeah.
or using it, like I'd have people passed out in chairs because they worked the night before because the company wanted you in there. But now we're complaining because now we can see that they're exhausted. And I'm like, we can't have it both ways. I had a solution. And if you just listened to that, out of sight, out of mind, you wouldn't even thought about it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And I think it's important too. I mean, I can be a little idealistic sometimes. I mean, I think it's important to remember there are seasons and weeks and months where like the beach ball is under the water, right? Like
mhm,
if the beach ball metaphor, like if that being in the water is surviving, there are times we're holding the beach ball under the water. We can't keep it out of the water all the time. But the question then is like, how do we help it up? Not how do we keep it out of the water? Because there are seasons where I'm going to sleep in a chair. But then like, can we find those times where we don't have to do that and we can recharge and refresh?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially like physicality, I think matters too. Like, especially in Michigan here, we'd absolutely have seasonal depression. It's a real
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And not everybody, goes through it. Like I look outside and I'm like, oh, winter. I need to wait until spring, and then I can move on with it. But there's other people that it just
Yeah.
they barely get up. Like it's
Yeah.
a hard thing, and it's scary thinking that a lot of leaders, they're in charge of these things, and they can go one of which way, and they're like, well, Bob's not performing, so I guess he's not, he doesn't, he's no longer going to be here or whatever it's going to be, and like that's not it's not what we need. Bob might need a second. Maybe Bob needs something to focus on to get away from like whatever it is. Have a conversation to start with. Like,
Yeah. I agree.
so do you think that the modern leadership culture rewards unhealthy behavior sometimes? I know we've kind of talked about it a little bit, but from your experience with many individuals and not my limited experience, what do you think?
I think short answer is yes. I do think it's shifting. Like I do think there is a shift that I get to see over the last number of years that I do think more and more the leadership culture is starting to look like, you know, psychological, creating space of psychological safety, creating space of physical rest, allowing for physical rest. I do think it is changing. And I think short answer is yes. I mean, I think leadership culture still has this sort of piece of it that hangs on that says, again, a leader is the smartest person in the room with all the answers and no doubt. And I don't know that that's true. And I think that when the leader, well, let me use a story. I was I was under a leader for a little while in my one of my career seasons that would say out loud all the time, would say, well, you just can't let people see you bleed. And and I didn't know. I was young. I didn't know any better. I remember it didn't feel great. I didn't know why it didn't feel great. Uh, but I can look back now and like he was absolutely bleeding, right? Like secretly, but then outwardly was like, I'm the expert. I have all the answers. Follow me. But then secretly, there's real bleeding going on. So I mean, I think that leadership culture, like if that's how we think about leadership, that creates a lot of damage in organizations. I mean, I think leaders perpetuate the culture that they create, right? And if the leader can't bleed, I think it'd be really hard for anybody under them to, metaphorically bleed, obviously too. So I think things like that are just really damaging to not just organizations, but I think to people as well. So yes, short answer, I do think there is a leadership culture that I think is harmful and toxic. And I am pretty grateful that I think that's becoming less and less.
Excited to hear that because I seem to be a barometer for the other end of that. And I am definitely an individual that, you want to not get up for work and be like, work. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
sure, like we all need to do that if, want to put food on the table and, other things. But while we're together, I go back, we were talking about stats a little bit earlier, and I don't have a shiny stat to tell you, but I have something that should land with everyone is who do you spend the most time with of the course of a day or a week? Well, hopefully your family and friends, but also the people that you work with. So I want to make sure that that time that you spend with me, you're like, man, I hate being around Ryan and doing anything that he wants me to do. And that's not how I would lead. And unfortunately, I'd find the places that are like, well, you didn't echo the message exactly how we wanted. I'm like, they're IT people. Like, they're some of the smartest individuals. They're going to call BS immediately
Yeah.
if it's BS, right?
Yeah.
I would rather tell them, like, hey, we have to do this. We all have a boss. Let's plan for plan B, and we can be teammates kind of thing. And the message can still land, right? Now they're like, okay, we understand why. We'll get in line. You're getting in line, like, so, like you mentioned, I'm the leader standing there going, yep, we're gonna do it, but we'll help them with this doesn't work out, and we'll have a plan B. It's such a crazy time, but I am glad to hear that maybe that is changing.
Yeah. I mean, I will say this, Ryan. I mean, I think the waters we swim in our coaching practice and the work that we do with people, like obviously we are working with organizations that are willing to lean into that sort of healthy leadership. The leaders that are saying you just can't let anybody see me bleed, we don't get to work with them. They're not calling us. So certainly, like we do we do have a bias that we get to see those organizations that are led by healthier leaders or growing leaders. But again, I think what our work would say is that there are more organizations and leaders doing that today than there were 5 years ago. But yeah, I mean, I certainly think there is a group of leaders out there that we're just never gonna see because our work is never gonna land with that sort of "don't let me see you bleed." So I probably have a skewed vision too, but again, I do think it is slowly but surely changing.
I think the most reassuring thing is that there's a pipeline of places that want to do, and that's
Yes,
that's the best thing that I just heard
yes,
because I would work at these organizations and put up some cute social media stuff saying they're doing X, Y, and Z, and I'd be like, we just played a game where you had whatever your leadership values on the wall, and nobody knew what they were. Like, what are you talking about?
yeah, yep, yep, yep. Yeah, I got to be a part of an organization for a long time, Ryan, that was led by a leader who built a culture that was one of the best cultures I've ever been in, and I'll never forget one of the practices that this leader would do is he would invite people to name impact when there was a mistake made. So we would sit as a staff meeting. We would sit, and one person would say, "Hey, I made this mistake. Can you all like? I'd love to hear the impact from you." And Everybody got to name it, and I just can't tell you enough like what that does for a culture and what that does for a staff. And there are times it's hard, and that's not to say every time every person at the table spoke up. It's not to say it was perfect, but it's a lot better than some of the other cultures that we see companies starting out with.
That is amazing. I always use a phrase that it's okay to fail. Just don't try to fail the exact same way, more than once. If you can learn from that, because that's how we're going to learn and build. And the fact that they are a culture where it was the person asking for like, how far did this magnify and what did that cause? Which might make them grow and think a little harder or whatever, hopefully for the right reasons. I can land with that because one of my other favorite leadership stories, and very short version of it is, we missed something very obvious, took something down. I had reminded the team, I think 3 times in the course of 3 months, something like that, and we had like an automated, like there was no reason to miss it
Mm,
basically,
yeah.
and we did. And of course, they understood that meant me having to go explain what happened, and I didn't throw them under the bus. I remember going back to that room with the entire team around a table, and I didn't do any talking. Like this was like I walked into the room, and it wasn't because I didn't plan to. They started the talking, and they said, "We really have nothing to tell you other than we're ashamed." Like, it felt like a proud parent moment where I'm like, wow, my children grew up. I don't have to say anything. They understand. My mind instantly went to, well, I can't let them walk out of this room feeling that down. We got to brighten spirits and say, it's okay. We'll learn from this. We already took care of it. Let's make sure we, do better going ahead. And
Yeah. Yeah.
wow, like what a change. And I realized one of my growth moments, because I also was doing the emotional thing probably too much. You learn if you want to learn,
Yeah.
and I can
Yeah.
look back at those times. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's interesting, Ryan. I had years ago. I mean, this is again way before any coaching work. I coached a middle school basketball team with one of my best friends. And I didn't know anything about basketball, but it was a small private school where like, dads just coach. And if dads aren't going to coach, they're not going to have a team. So I'm assistant coaching with my best friend. And by no effort of ours, this team just like crushed undefeated, won the end of season tournament. Like these are 7th and 8th grade kids, and at the end of the year, I'll never forget, the principal of the school walks up to us and we're holding the trophy, right? The end of year trophy. And we're like, yeah, we kicked everybody's butt. And the principal says, huh, that's great. But like, what did you learn? And I'll never forget, like his thing was like, you didn't lose. You didn't fail once. There was never a challenge. Like what, that's great that you have this beautiful trophy. Fine. But like, what did you learn? And in the moment I'm like, get out of here. But now I look back really fondly at that question because I think, what you just said about failing, that really is the opportunity to learn. Uh, all we learned in that season, all those boys learned and us as coaches was like, nobody's got anything for us. We didn't learn anything. And that's one of those leadership tropes or quips or cliches that stick with me. And it's because it's real.
yeah, no, I mean I've been given a slice of humble pie recently. I was on a string of a long time of just I knew how to pass certification tests, no problem, left and right. I think it had been 3 or 4 years, and then very recently I got humbled with like 2 in a row, and I'm like, what in the heck happened? And it's a reminder to myself to be like, okay, yeah, you have to change and adapt, and you have to keep striving and get better, in that regard. And I look at that in so many different topics and ways to go. I've never like walking into a room trying to have that egotistical, and I think maybe that's where it was, kind of, going is like you didn't have a challenge, you didn't learn anything. I want to learn. I want, to have the, the blood shown, so to speak, or whatever, and go. I've said more in one case, I wasn't born like this. Like there's a lot of scars you don't see, because there's a lot of learning so that I had to take, and some of them weren't so kind, right?
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
learned from that, and
Yeah.
that's what shaped me today, and what will shape me going forward.
Yeah. Love that.
So burnout, right? Why has burnout become so common in leadership roles today?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I don't remember who I'm stealing this from, but I'm stealing this quote from someone. Um, it's this idea that burnout is probably not about time and effort. It's probably about alignment. And I think that's really true. So when I hear the question of like, why is it so prominent today? I think I wonder about like, do we know ourselves, and do we know who and how we want to be, and do we then align our work and our leadership with who and how we want to be? Uh, because I think I would agree. I don't know that burnout is about time working. I own a coaching practice. My wife and I have a side hustle. We work a lot, and I don't know that I feel close to burnout, because there's a huge alignment with who and how the person I want to be, the sort of authentic person, who and how I want to be, with the work that I do. So I think my question with my clients is always like, is there a misalignment somewhere? Is there a misalignment in, again, who and how we want to be? Like, are we being asked and required to be someone we're not prepared to be, or are we being asked to be, to show up in a way that we aren't prepared to show up as? um does the heart of the work we're doing misalign with who we are? Does the why misalign? Like, I think I'm always looking for a misalignment when I think about burnout, more so than I'm thinking about like even boundaries or time.
I think that makes a lot of sense because if you're happy doing what you're doing, it's probably very rare to feel burnt out. And I think maybe at times for me, like right now, working for myself is the most like breath of fresh air because I don't have any of those. Like, if there's any of those like indications of negativity and toxicity and stuff like that, well, that's my fault.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
move it out of the way right now. And so it doesn't feel like that, but I can find myself going 14, 16 hours a day and go, oh gosh, what time is it? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I need to, get some rest just from my bodily function perspective.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
mentally, yeah, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
But if I'm not, being honest in communication and in a two-way street environment about whatever it is, then yeah, I've absolutely been in those shoes. I've absolutely probably could have easily been one of your clients, no problem. Just thinking back to the things I've had to do,
Yeah.
or thought at least.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. Like, we are human, and we have physical limitations, and those limitations I think are actually good. Like, they are built-in boundaries. Like, I need to sleep, you need to sleep. I need to find things that bring me joy. You need to find, like, we need to feel all these, like, I need to use my muscles, right? Like, we do have physical limitations. Um, here's how I think about this. My journey into coaching, I transitioned from pastoral ministry into coaching. And there was a season, I would say the last 18 months of my pastoral ministry, the role shifted from me like coaching culture and building culture and coaching volunteer leaders. It shifted where the culture had taken hold. Leaders were kind of coaching themselves, and I was getting to do less coaching. And what was needed of me was, I needed to be an organizational leader. The organization needed me to shift the way that I led, and it created a lot of tension because it was misaligned, with who like, it created tension in me. I would metaphorically go home and kick the dog. I would never kick my dog, but metaphorically, I would kick my dog. I would snap at my kids. The relationships on this staff that were normally thriving and really well, I found myself feeling tension, in them, feeling burnout, feeling like there had to be a change. And I attribute that to the misalignment, to the misalignment of what was being asked of me, and what I was capable of, or what I desired. And I don't want to be flippant and say like, man, when somebody feels tension, they should bail. I don't think that's the case. But there was an 18-month journey to say, there has to be a change, or I'm going to burn out. And that was not about like the time, the energy, the effort hadn't changed at all. But the alignment had changed.
I think there's so much that you just said too that is self-reflecting because you identified, I will burn out. This is like the box that I can, live in. And once that gets full, it's going to spill over. I look back at myself at a younger, I don't no longer think this way, but I remember living it and not understanding how to get to like where I'm at now of like, why can't I reach these people? I'm trying to like, why, like I'm helping all these people and I had a lot of success until I didn't. And then I meet people that weren't motivated, weren't ready, were whatever, it is. And, I don't want to paint them all as negative. They weren't in a place where they were ready for that. And they're thinking like, why can't I do that? And then I realized over time and learning that I can only help those at the time when they're ready to do that. So I need to focus my time and energy there, not write the others off. Like let them know, like, hey, if you ever get to that place, I will not do the work for you. I'm willing to help you a lot, but you got to at least come meet me at the place and we'll walk together and do it, kind of, metaphorically, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if they don't come, it's a hard pill to swallow for me as somebody who just very extroverted, probably likes people more. I don't know, insert word there, empath maybe, but I like to turn over every stone before I say I can't, like I no longer have an idea or can't do, cut the rope kind of thing. But people have to be ready. They have to be self-aware. They have to, like you just said a lot in your response that I wanted to just point that out and say like I've lived that for sure. There's still a lot for me to live
Yeah. Yeah.
and learn.
Yeah.
So I think now is a good time to hear from our sponsor.
Hello, everyone. Ryan here from Stellarhorn. Let me take a quick second to talk to you about something I see all the time. Most businesses don't actually have a technology problem, they have a leadership problem. They've got systems, tools, even teams in place, but no clear direction, no strategy, and no one connecting technology to the business. That's exactly why I built Stellarhorn Group. I help organizations through fractional CIO leadership, advisory, and project-based work, bringing executive-level technology leadership without the full-time CIO cost. Whether it's strategy, cybersecurity, AI governance, or leading critical initiatives, it's about helping you make better decisions, reduce risk, and actually move forward with confidence. If that sounds like something your organization is dealing with, please reach out. Let's have a conversation. Stellarhorn Group, rare leadership, real results. Technology leadership without the full-time CIO cost.
So now that we're back, one thing that's really stood out to me from your content is this idea that many leaders are rewarded for performance, even when it's disconnected from authenticity. What does authentic leadership actually look like in practice?
Yeah, great question. This is one of those words that we see getting misused a lot, Ryan. I think there's a lot of people that hear the word authenticity and they think like, well, this is who I am, take me or leave me. Like I might lash out at you on this I'm not going to, but some people think the myth of authenticity is, Ryan, if I lash out at you on this podcast, that's just who I am, right? Or like maybe Jim Bob is a really anxious leader and behaves badly in meetings, but like, well, I want Jim Bob at the table, so we have to just deal with his anxiety. I don't think that's authenticity at all. We would our coaching. I say we. I'm just here by myself, but I have a coaching partner. We in our practice would define authenticity as a closer alignment to who and how we want to be in our leadership. So it begins with this like getting really crystal clear. Who are we? Who do we want to be? And how do we want to lead? And then authenticity is about leading from that place. The hard part of like leading from that place isn't the hard part. Getting clear on that is the hard part. Being able to name, here's who and how I want to be. That is really hard. Most of us skip that step. And I think that's why we end up with like, this is just who I am. We would say, no. I had a leader once. I was in a group. I was sort of the second leader in a room of leaders. And the main leader at the end of a meeting, end of a long meeting, like a planning meeting, would get to the point where he would be emotionally and mentally tapped, and he would take a 3-ring binder and he would go wham. He would slam it closed, and everybody would like look around the room, like, what are we supposed to do now? And that was his, like, well, the meeting's done now. I guess our meeting's done now. And like that, if I believe, looking back now, that if anybody could ask him, hey, do you know the impact of that? And is that how you want to be? I'm certain that he would say, no, that's not how I want to be. I'm also certain no one asked him. Like, this was years before I was ready to ask him that question. But I'm certain that when we are presented with the reality of how we're showing up and what the impact of our actions are when we're not behaving aligned with who and how we want to be, I'm certain that most adults can get to a place to say, that's not how I want to lead. So yeah, I mean, that's the long way to answer your question. I think authenticity gets a bad rap, and we really think it has to be paired with a clear definition of who and how we want to be so that we can lead from that place.
I think that your explanation is incredibly true, because I think most people, if you ask that question, would say, yeah, this is just who I am. So
Yeah.
take me or leave me.
Yeah.
And I constantly would remind people, especially those working for me, that's like the most direct, control or oversight that I would have would be, okay, I honestly don't care what you do outside of here, provided you don't, bring bad that we have to deal with. But like, I don't care what you want to go do, what your belief is, what your political party, religious, whatever, any of those things do not personally matter to me. I'm happy to work with you, but when we're in this shared space, when we go to the grocery store, so to speak, right? We don't own those spaces. So we do have to remember there are other individuals here, and that maybe those kind of behaviors that when you go home and close the door, do what you want to do. Awesome. You're in your own, space. You do whatever you want. But in that kind of space, yeah, those things matter. Yeah, the binder slamming, right? I would rethink something that I probably like. I'm sure there's something where I'm like, man, yeah, I probably didn't even see that. And I wish somebody would have said something, because maybe at that second, maybe I wouldn't have thought it, but I'm a dweller. I probably would have figured it out over time. And like, yeah, I can see.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a couple asterisks here. I mean, there are narcissist leaders, right? There are leaders who are narcissists that will never not slam the binder, metaphorically, right? That will never see that there's a different way to be. Those, like, I name that to say I think those are the outliers. So when I say most adults can see those things and change, I do think most can, and most non-narcissistic leaders will. But there are always these outliers. People, maybe somebody's listening to this right now going, not my leader, right? And maybe not. I think there is a group of leaders. I mean, leadership brings narcissists, right? Leadership draws narcissism out of all of us. So I think there are leaders who won't ever do that work to be different. Do you know Brene Brown?
Ironically, just posted something last week with a quote that I used in one of my content pieces.
So I love Brene. We in our practice quote Brene Brown a lot. I mean, she's just done so much good work. And when I think about leaders and authenticity and aligning with who and how they want to be, I always have to remind myself, like, what Brene Brown said, that people aren't sucking on purpose to piss me off. They're doing the best they can with what they've got. It's true for me every day. Like, healthy leadership is not a finish line, not a sprint race. It's a marathon. It's a spectrum, right? Like, it's a spectrum of progress. I'm not sure that any of us actually fully arrive, but I think if we're progressing, I think that's the key, right? That's the goal. And I have to tell myself, like, I'm not sucking on purpose to piss people off. No one is sucking on purpose to piss me off. We're all doing the best we can with what we've got. So that might look not great today. Maybe better next week. I think that's sort of the maybe less of a flip of a switch and more of a walk along a spectrum.
Yeah, my Brene Brown quote was much naughtier than that, but I very much tied to what you said. And I think for somebody like, I'll just use me as an example, just so that we're not calling anybody out. somebody like me can get dangerous too, because if I'm constantly moving, am I ever finding like my natural footing, and am I just pivoting then to what I think people want? And I think
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
could be dangerous. And I found myself
Yeah.
kind of in that, where now I'm more grounded. I'm like, I know what good leadership looks like. I've had success. I've had the teams. I have the team right now that if they were like, "You landed where?" Don't care. Insert name here. Doesn't matter. Are are you willing to bring us all back? And they pick up wherever they're at. And I mean, not to name names, and maybe don't look that up because I don't want them to get in trouble at the places where they're at. But that's the best thing for me. I figured out that when I'm all done, I want people to look back and go, there's two types of leaders that I'm always going to remember. I'm going to remember every bad leader I had on one side of the fence, and I'm going to remember all the good ones on the other side. And I want to be on that side. And that doesn't have to be any specific way. It's just that I know that I did what I felt was right, and that what somebody else remembers that you did for them, whatever that is. And that's what I try to remember.
Yeah. And I think you just named that alignment piece, right? Like you have to be able to measure that for yourself. And how do you measure that without a crystal clear, here's who I'm going to be? And I think you just articulated like working to align those things. Yeah. Well said.
Teeter totter. It's a constant ebb and flow,
Yeah.
roller coaster, whatever analogy you want to use. I've definitely been up and down and had to realign, like you just said, to like, okay, I'm too far now. I
Yeah.
need to get back to the barometer.
Yeah, and self-compassion is such an important piece of this. I mean, I don't think there's a leader out there, myself included, who does it right every time. You know, like when we try to grow and try to develop, we're gonna miss it, right? One of the things that I know about me, Ryan, is that I am very fearful that someone's gonna think I'm dumb. Like that goes way back, and I've done a lot of work to like get on top of that and know when that's present and know how to like get ahead of it. Uh, but but there are times where like that feels really real, and I don't show up as my most authentic self or most aligned with how I want to be. Uh, because that's, I mean, decades I've been fearful of that. So to think that I can change that overnight is pretty unrealistic. So self-compassion is important because we get to try again tomorrow. And if we don't give ourselves a healthy dose of self-compassion, we won't try again tomorrow. We'll just go back to what we've always done.
And I think that's like, I can connect with what you're talking about, because like my last year was a lot of like, I don't understand what is happening to me. Like, and then, I'm doubting everything. Like, should I have done? And the answer was, oh, like the game changed at the end of the day. And I need to change with it. But rewiring all of that, like you said, I've had to tell people, and I've learned that too, that like it's my job to like tell others like what's happening and why maybe I'm thinking a certain way or whatever. That I can't change that overnight. Like, I will get there. I will believe that there's a couple dominoes that need to fall, and I'll get better and better and better.
Yep.
But
Yep.
the game changed, all from
Yep.
under you.
Yep.
So I think this is a great question. Do you think that social media and modern business culture makes authenticity harder?
Ryan, can I be really transparent? I
Absolutely.
hate social media so much. I hate it so much, Ryan. I hate that it has to be a conversation in our business. And I've this is more honest than I've ever been on a podcast, but I actually really hate it. Um, I'm not sure that social media drives authenticity anywhere. I'm not sure it's built for authenticity. I'm not sure it's built for any of that. I mean, I think the challenge is like as a coaching practice, um, who helps people live fully and lead authentically. I mean, I think we try to approach social media in a way that aligns with who and how we want to be, right? And I think there's just this constant temptation to say, well, that coaching practice has 1 billion followers and we have like 85, like, well, how do we be more like that? So yeah, the temptation is always there to chase the follows or chase the clicks, to chase attention. I was on this podcast just a minute ago with my business partner, and he said like those things come and go. Social media comes and goes. Um, it's such a grind. Like I don't know, maybe you know this, but like to be good on social media like takes it's a full-time job, just constant. So I feel like I maybe derailed off your question, but I think the short answer is I don't know that social media has ever like fostered authenticity or can foster authenticity, whether that's like life, leadership, whatever it is. So, and I'm probably going to tell you about our social medias in a little bit. So take that for what it's worth. But yeah, I don't know that I equate authenticity and social media in the same sentence much. How would you answer that question?
Yeah, I think that is how do I say it's the necessary evil I think that we know is in the room. Otherwise, how do you get seen? And you're absolutely right. I'm a strange individual in the IT space that I really enjoy psychology as well. So like what is driving like I have a really good friend who is a product director as well. So like all of those theories of like buttons and colors and why people gravitate to those kinds of things is kind of the same idea I look at social media where I have absolutely heard everything you've just said. And I see it. I absolutely do. And I've more and more stopped going, well, I'm not going to respond to it. I'm just going to move on to what I want to get to. Like, why am I actually here? What do I want to find or just veg out, kind of thing. But for me, um, I do find myself looking at, different numbers or like, how many, like I just recently launched a newspaper and I'm actually really glad that this happened. I never got any kinds of notifications. Like the last time I looked at it, it was like 6 people. And I'm like, okay, well, at least 6 people did it. And the next time I logged in it was like 1,075 people subscribed to it. And I'm like, whoa, like
Yeah.
what happened? And I wasn't doing anything crazy. I was like, I'm writing about in that particular thing. I think it was about AI and something. I've already forgotten what my first newsletter was, but
Uh,
it's centered on AI, and I'm writing authentically in that version. And most of my content I'm putting up is pictures of me now or quotes that I'm actually saying on podcasts or that I'm saying to customers and stuff. So I'm trying to do it backwards. Where it gets me, I don't know, but I totally agree to you. Does that make me worse than somebody who's got a million subscribers and follows or anything? I'd like to be in that room because I've learned recently that the answer is no.
yeah. Yeah.
Let's
I mean,
let's challenge.
I think here, can I say two things about this? I
Absolutely.
don't want to like take too much of your time, but I think a couple things are true. Like when we, you said it before, this is a necessary evil. Like having a business, you need social media. So I think our approach as a business is, 10 years from now, whatever, whenever we're done or whatever, like, can we look back and say we did it the way that was most aligned with who we are and who we want to be? And like, that's our approach. And is that going to get a billion followers? No. Is that going to convert a bunch of business into coaching? No. But at least we can say that we're comfortable with how we did. We did it the way we were comfortable doing, and we didn't conform to kind of what we would need to do to get all the clicks and the likes. Um, there's an old saying from my pastoral ministry years. I don't know, like, I don't want to assume anybody is anything or knows anything, but there are these mega churches, Ryan, who have thousands of people show up, and their preachers have 1 million views on YouTube and all this kind of stuff, and it's really sexy and flashy to look at these and be like, oh, this is the pinnacle. But there's this kind of old proverb in the church world that says, if you want to find the best pastor or preacher, go down to the corner in your little town where there's 10 people sitting in the pews. That's probably the best pastor and the best preacher. And I think it's kind of the same on social media too. Like, I think the small presences, the small authentic presences are often the best content, often the best, the best wisdom or whatever you want to call it. So I try to keep that in mind too. Like, often that's kind of a world that is full of mirages and illusions. So how do we as a business show up in a way that we're not portraying a mirage or an illusion?
Yeah, and I might be not the best person to follow it up because I just got used car salesman feels and vibes, and I'm not to like crap on used car salesmen, but like I don't want to be sold. Like it feels already like we're off to a bad start. And you're absolutely right. I would rather run into a thousand people like me that nobody knows, and now that we all found each other, like yeah, maybe we could get known and keep our authentic selves. There we go. Tie it in.
Yep, yep.
Because that's what I'm doing. I'm not always putting up the best and like you said, most sexy content. I don't have all the time in the world to do that. Quite frankly, I feel that content at all, at least you can see like here's my opinion on that resonates with you in your business. Awesome. Maybe I'm your person. If it doesn't, well, we just got to a quicker outcome, and I'm okay with that because I'm not going to be beloved by everybody. And I learned that lesson very early when I was like, why does not everybody love me?
Yep, yep. That's a great point.
Um,
Yep.
so yeah, I'm with you, and at least you're going to be able to do work with people that want to do work with you, and they're going to want your outcomes. And yeah, what I call a head on the pillow, kind of situation where you can actually put your head on the pillow that night and go, man, these people wanted to be here, they wanted to work with me, and we reached them, and not the individuals who are million followers putting out all kinds of whatever they're putting out to get clicks.
Yeah, my partner and I are both way too old to be chasing a million likes or a million follows or whatever. We're way too old for that.
So, transitioning a little bit, I think that one of the most important parts of your work is the conversation around the inner critic. So, why do so many leaders struggle with self doubt and imposter syndrome?
Yeah, it's a good question. And let me say this too. I don't think the inner critic is always bad, right? I think that there is like, I'll answer your question, but I always want to start with the idea that like sometimes the inner critic is trying to teach us like, hey, I need to get better at this, or I need to learn this, or I need to grow in this area. The real question for me is when is the inner critic causing me to like feel shame and hide and avoid, keep quiet, lash out, whatever it is. So I think those are the real, like, there is a positive, like, not all pressure is bad, right? Not all inner critic is bad. The inner critic is bad when it causes us to hide. I I, I don't know always how to answer this question of like, why do so many, like, I think it's so different for everybody. Here's one thing I do know. um I think all of us have what in our practice we would call little t trauma from our first formation, from our elementary school years, middle school years, high school years, whatever. And little t trauma, I mean, like, not a catastrophic big T trauma, not a life-changing event, but a moment where we were embarrassed, a moment where we raised our hand and we got the question wrong in school, the moment where the feeling of being laughed at happens. Those are little t trauma moments that teach us that those aren't safe. And I think the imposter syndrome, if we boil it down enough, it all boils down to this fear of something not being safe, or the fear of being found out, or the fear of not belonging, or the fear of, like, I had a client once who said, what if they find out that I'm not the person they hired? Well, like, did you trick them? Like, did you lie on your resume? No, the answer is no, but I think it all boils down to fear. And I think we all, because we had a first formation and childhood, all of us have experiences where we've learned that the world isn't safe. Uh, so that's a human experience. And when a human experience happens, then I think we all then sort of translate that into this imposter syndrome. Uh, I think it's one way, shape, or form. I think it's everybody.
I mean, I can tell you right now that I used to be the best analogy I use for myself is I used to be the kid that loved getting gifts, Christmas, birthday, whatever. And now I'm the adult that I don't want a gift. I'd rather give the gift. So that flip had to happen to me, and it is in the back of my mind and almost every decision, good and bad.
Yeah,
Like it's not
yeah.
always good with that mentality for me now. And you're absolutely right. That's what drives me, as a person even through today. Uh, So you mentioned a couple things there, and I think it's a great segue to get into it. So you were mentioning, the little t part of that. So one of the things that stood out to me was your E plus R equals T framework, which I have as encounter plus reflection equals transformation. Can you explain the framework a little bit?
Yep. So this is one of the practical tools that we give people to address kind of what they're feeling when they show up in places that are misaligned with who they want to be. So we would define it like this: encounter is any situation that shocks us or surprises us or causes us to react in ways we don't prefer. Maybe it's getting cut off in traffic. Maybe, a couple weeks ago, I got an email that was hard and I like reached up and closed my laptop. Like that is an encounter. Those things that happen that cause this sort of autopilot response in us, not a response from our best thinking. I think we have dozens of those a day. Maybe at least dozens a day. When those happen, we invite our clients to pause either real time, 20 minutes later, 24 hours, sometime later, pause and reflect on those with some simple questions. And those questions are things like, what happened? Who was involved? What emotion did I feel? What did I do? And maybe most importantly, if I have that encounter again, would I do the same thing? And those two things, the encounter and then the reflection, we think always leads to transformation because, like I said before, when we as adults see things like that we don't prefer, we can't unsee it. We can choose to ignore it, but that's different than unseeing it. Like when I realized that I automatically closed my laptop from when I got that hard email, I didn't like that. And I don't get to unsee it. Right? I don't get to unsee what I did. I can choose what I'm going to do now, but I don't get to unsee it. So we think the power in that framework is the idea that once it's in front of us, now we have agency and have the empowerment to make a choice.
I like gravitate and connect to that so much, and probably don't do it enough. Even like
Same, Ryan.
even closing the laptop, right? Like I wish sometimes I'd just close the laptop and go, you do not want me to respond to this right now because
Yeah.
we're gonna regret whatever comes after that.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, 20 minutes a day. The times I get it right, I find myself giving myself, like, I call it like the overnight sleep. Do I feel the same
Yep.
way when I wake up
Yep.
tomorrow? If the answer is no, okay, let's move forward.
Yeah.
If it's yes, like you said, why? And then what do I need to work out to figure out why that landed so hard? And it's only when I like
Yeah.
catch it and get it right.
Yeah. I
So
love that. I love that.
So yeah, we're towards the end here, but I think this is a couple very important questions. So the first one is, what's the biggest leadership lesson that you've learned?
Yeah, so I said it already. I'll say it again because I believe in it so deeply. It's not mine. I was taught this. How I do something is just as, if not equally, is equally, if not more important than what I do. I just there's so many times in my own leadership that I've seen, years ago where I've made a decision that was the right decision, but I made it the wrong way, and it just had such bad unintended consequences. That I would have come to the same result with a better process, and it would the result often doesn't matter, right? Um, I can also see times now where I employ good process. I talk to people I need to talk to, and come to the same result that I kind of knew already was the right answer. But I do the things, and it just goes so much better. Trust is built, cooperation is built, culture is perpetuated. I cannot stress enough how important I think process is, and the how versus the what.
You're a person who's willing to learn and grow. And we're not always going to get it right. And I think that if we do those things that you just said at the end, right, the process and the structure, that those around us who are involved with that will go, we know he had the best intentions. So something went wrong, and the least thing we can talk about what, and maybe we can help come to a better outcome in the end. Because I know being by myself right now, I have a lot of mirror conversations with myself, or seek out others and go, does this sound crazy? um, because yeah, we have the best of intentions. Typically we try to, anyways. I feel like. So to you, what do you feel is the most underrated leadership quality?
Curiosity. Not even close. I mean, well, vulnerabilities may be close, but I think curiosity. I think for all those reasons we talked about with imposter syndrome and fear, I think curiosity is the trait that gets pushed to the side quickest. The idea that you said it before, like I didn't used to be a curious person. I consider myself a pretty curious person. Want to learn, want to grow, but I had to build that. There was a season in my life where like, no, leaders just have the right answers, and curiosity felt like a threat. If I'm slow, if I ask questions, people are going to think something of me. The process is going to take too long, whatever. I think curiosity is always the first thing to go. I Ryan, I don't know a time where a leader has practiced curiosity and had it go badly or poorly. Um, that's not to say everybody loves it. Like I don't think leadership goal is to have everybody love everything all the time, but big picture, I've never seen curiosity go badly. So curiosity for me is number one.
I mean, anytime somebody's willing to raise their hand is a time that they're willing to be educated. So I'm a big fan of that. So I'm right there with you. So second to last one, what does thriving actually mean to you today?
Yeah, thriving for me, it's gonna sound so dumb, right? I'm 42. Like my idea of success and thriving are different today than they've ever been. Honestly, thriving for me is being able to do what I love to do in a way that brings meaning and purpose to the world, and being able to do it in a way that aligns with who I am. I honestly don't. I honestly don't care. I don't care about like how much money we make. I honestly don't. Like that sounds so dumb and cliche, and I feel bad saying it, but for me, thriving is being able to. Well, let me say there's a guy named Frederick Buechner. He's a theologian, but he talks about vocation being the. I'm gonna butcher this, but vocation is where the world's greatest need meets our heart's greatest desire, and I just think that's really true. So for me, I think thriving is trying to live that out a little bit better each day.
As somebody who is in the same age gap as you, I don't think that that is as crazy as it sounds.
It's not.
Because I went through that, transformation a bit myself, and it's like, yeah, a little bit of everything more could help, but I'm finding that again, I say that pillow analogy. If I feel really good about putting my head on that pillow that night, and I continue to have those nights, well, I guess I'm rich in good sleep because I feel really good
Yeah,
at
yeah,
that point.
yeah. At some point, we have to look back, right, and be happy and comfortable. And I love the head on the pillow language, Ryan. I agree.
So, Kurt, this has been just an amazing conversation, and I could absolutely keep going, clearly, and we won't. But I think a lot of leaders are going to hear this episode and realize that they're not alone in some of those pressure or exhaustion or self doubt that they've been carrying. And I think that the reminder that leadership, doesn't have to come at the expense of losing yourself is incredibly important right now. So I certainly appreciate you coming on here and doing the show with us. If anybody wants to connect with you or find you after this, where can they go and locate you?
Yeah. So the easiest way is we have a website. It's Our coaching practice is called Brimstone Coaching Group, and our website is brimstonecoachinggroup.com. There are a number of ways to schedule some time with myself or my business partner to see if our coaching philosophy matches with where someone feels stuck. Completely free, no obligation. We also have links on there to our podcast or to the book Over My Shoulder. The book captures again our why and how, and is maybe the best way for people to get a glimpse into the work we do and how we do it.
And I absolutely love that. And we'll include all of that in the episode release so everybody can find that. Um, And with that, that has been the conclusion of our meeting today. So meeting adjourned, and I greatly appreciate you coming on here. It's been a lovely conversation, and I know I'm going to try to stay connected with you because I enjoy these styles of conversations these days. So I appreciate you. And with that, thanks everybody for taking the time, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.